Today I will talk about HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. If you go in any website today, be it on your phone, or tablet, or laptop or desktop computer, you open your browser, you're gonna see a web page, and what we now see as completely dynamic web applications such as social media like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and so on. Now, how is that built? Well, at its core, what we see is built primarily with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And today we're going to cover just HTML. HTML gives the structure of the document, whereas CSS will style it, make it pretty, and JavaScript will make it dynamic or ever-changing and interactive. When HTML first started, it was used for people, scientists to share scientific papers and so on. So the terminology from that time is what we see still today. And that's why you're going to see we're talking about documents when we refer to the web pages. Now let's get started here. I'm in jsphero.net. And this environment allows me to run the code that I type in this HTML panel. And there's CSS and JavaScript as well, but we'll focus on HTML today. So if you click run in the top left, you're gonna see the result in the bottom right. Now, this is one of the layouts. If you don't like this layout, click settings in the bottom right and switch from either columns or other layouts. I'm going to use classic. And my settings also, I disable auto close HTML tags and auto close brackets because I think for beginners it's best to always type them manually instead of relying on autocomplete. In any case, so to start off, HTML, a document, when you go on a web page, you're going to see a lot of things. You're going to see text. You're going to see images, links, things that you click to go to another location. You're going to see video, audio, and so on. But let's start off with the basics. How to display simple text, maybe a paragraph. So to do that, we start off with a greater than sign, and then what we have to type the name of the HTML element. In this case, the paragraph is just P, and then you have to finish off here with a greater than sign. And then you start typing the text. Let's say hello world. That's what I want the user to see in the paragraph. And then to finish off, once you're done with the text, you can say less than name of the element with the slash before it, and then greater than sign. Now what we have here is this angle brackets P. It's what we call the open tag, and the angle brackets with the slash forward slash preceding the element name, we call that a closing tag. So everything that comes after an open tag and before the closing tag is part or is contained within this element. It's a child of the element. And if I click run in the top left, I'm gonna see the words hello and world shown here. Okay, so in HTML, we have elements that we build using open and closing tags. Now you're gonna see tag and element being interchanged a lot to mean the same thing. Okay, what if I wanted to display another paragraph? Well, you follow the same pattern. You can do either before or after. In this case, if it's after, it has to be right after the closing tag. We can start off less than name of the element, in this case P, and then greater than sign, and then type the text. Hello again, and then once you're done, add the closing tag with slash, less than, slash, name of the element being P, greater than. And then you can click run in the top left, and you're gonna see hello again appear. Now notice that hello again, it doesn't appear next to hello world because what you see in the code does not necessarily translate to the visuals that you see as a result of that code. So because of that, I am allowed to style my code visually any way I want. Typically, I would break a new line here and click run. It's the same outcome. So you can style any way you want. Some people like making the tags have their own lines. Same thing. Some people add what's called indentation, which is spaces to the left in the beginning, usually at least two. No change. Okay. Now, how you see the paragraphs, they are that way because of their default style in the sense of visual style. Every browser will have default styles, and those styles are defined by CSS cascading style sheet. Now, the default style for the paragraph is such that any text that you have, the content itself, you cannot have anything next to it. So it'll push the content to the next line. For example, hello world. We finished the word. However, this whole thing here will push anything next to it to the next line. So just to show you briefly, I'm going to right click with my browser, click inspect, and this brings up what are called the developer tools so that I can debug my web page. And I just want to highlight on this inspector tab on Firefox, it's going to be named Elements on any Chromium based browser. I just want to hover over the paragraph. You're going to see the content occupies the whole row. That's what I was talking about. The default behavior visually is to push everything down. Same thing for the other one. In any case, I can close the DevTools. All right, so that's simple enough. Now, let's do another element. So when you talk about documents, what HTML was originally made for, would have documents could be something like a scientific paper. It would surely have a title, some content like paragraphs, and then subtitles and nested sections, subsections. Now, you can do that, and usually we typically use an element called H1 through H6, which stands for heading level 1 all the way to heading level 6. So I can break a line here, and before my paragraph of hello world, I want to add a title to this page document here. So less than, the element name here is H1 and then greater than, and I can start writing my title. Say welcome of exclamation, and then finish off with less than slash name of the element greater than sign. Click run at the top left. You're gonna see now there's a huge welcome letters, a little bit bigger than a paragraph. You notice that the open tag, it's always the same pattern. I have the name of the element, and it has to match the same as the closing tag. So be careful. Don't type different element names for the closing and opening. Okay, so the default visuals for an H1 heading level 1 is to have bold letters a little bit bigger than the paragraph one, because it's meant to stand out like a title. Now, like I said, H1 can go all the way to H6 on the elements. So if you have something like a subsection of this, if I go break a line from hello again, maybe I have like a subsection. I want to say what it means to be welcome, something like that. Like a subsection, you know how you have documents, they have subsections, subtitles. I've got to use here less than, H2, greater than, and then my text. And then after the text, I close with less than slash H1, H2, greater than. And then you can add a paragraph there, anchor brackets P, describe this subsection, and then finish off with angle bracket slash with the P inside. So this, what it means to be welcome would be like a subsection. I don't know if you notice visually, but it's slightly smaller in its font size than the H1. That's the default styling. And then it goes on and on. It's kind of tedious, but I'll just type heading level 3 so you can see what it looks like. But essentially the same kind of thing. Now I can copy that and do H4. Heading level 4, and then copy that to H5. It goes all the way to 6. And you're going to see visually, it's just text that gets increasingly, gradually smaller and smaller, which is meant to be a subsection of a subsection of a subsection, like a nested. Oops, let me add 6 here and click run in the top left. Make sure you click run. Now I can scroll down. Let me increase this so you can see more. You can see every heading level, the higher the number, the smaller the font size gets, because it's meant to be a subsection of a subsection. Now, this is the original intent of these elements. Doesn't necessarily mean they're used for their original purpose today. In HTML, you're going to see a lot of elements being used in different ways other than the original intent, and that's very common. And also the visual styles, you might not always see the heading level, whatever, in this specific gradually decreasing font size, because anybody could go in and add custom styles for any HTML element. So don't always take that for granted that they're going to look like a certain way. Anybody could style the HTML element to look any way they wanted. Okay. So that's nice. Now I want to do something interesting today. Add here after welcome, let's add this interesting HTML element that is meant to show some progress indicator. So less than the name of the element is progress, and then greater than. And then we're gonna not gonna type anything within for the content. So I'm gonna just write the closing tag like that. So if I click run, so you're gonna see this kind of a bar with something inside going from the right to the left and back and forth. So this could be used for something like a loading indicator, like a spinner, your website or content still loading. That's one of the use. And I think this element's might be pretty new in the sense of history of HTML. So it's probably not very used today yet. But anyway, we can also add to this something like a progress. Maybe you're reading a book, right? If you're reading a document or book, maybe you're on a certain page. There's say that's 100 pages. And right now we are on page maybe around 40. So that means we have completed 40% of the book. So we could show this level meter, right? Filled up all the way 40%. So to do that, we can tell the progress element to change its behavior to look like something different. I want that bar to actually be fixed and aligned to the left. So the way we can give an element additional information on metadata is through attributes. And to add an attribute to an element, what you have to do is go to the open tag, and then to the right-hand side of its name, add a space, and then you start typing the name of the attribute, and then equal sign, and then double quotes, write the value, and then finish off with more double quotes. So in this case, I want to give this a value, equal sign. I want it to be 0.4 and then close quotes. So name of the attribute is value, and you have, by the syntax of HTML, you need an equal sign, and then quotes, double quotes, and type the value. In this case, I put 0.4, and then close it. Don't forget to close the quotes, and click run in the top left. You're going to see the meter is like, it's kind of the blue color. If you can see the color, it's like 40% filled. So this value, by default, the maximum value is 1, which is meant to be 100%. And 0.4 is like 40% if you multiply by 100. So that means, okay, I'm 40% of the way reading this document. So if as you increase that, it's going to fill up and up. So if I put 0.6, that's 60%. And if you put 0.8 is 80%. See, I'm finishing the book all the way up to 1, right? If I put 1, that's the maximum. It's all filled up. Okay? So in the context of HTML, right now we're just talking about static documents in the sense that they just stand there and they are not interactive. Things are not changing in the document. Now, when you look at the website today, there are many things changing, right? Things are in the document are not permanent. Something's moving, something is changing place, something is being typed into a form field. So you'd probably manipulate this progress bar depending on the state the user is in. In the case of reading a book or a document, you would have first get the page, what page I'm in right now, and it would compute, okay, if I'm page 40, that means I'm 40 divided by total pages, let's say 100. So that means I'm 0.4 all the way. So I take that value and I modify this element to have the value 0.4. But the way you do that is through what JavaScript, which is the programming language of the web. So we're not going to learn that today, but that's how we would manipulate this document and change the value of the progress bar. So it would change every time we click to next page, next page. See, I'm clicking, being interactive. I'm clicking, that's an event, and that will cause something to happen to this document. And that's the computation of the progress. Okay, but for now, let's leave it static. Doesn't change as we're looking at it. And like I said, we could have a book that we're reading and have many pages. Maybe we click a button to go to the next page. How do we show a button in HTML? Well, we're going to use the button component. Let's say here after the progress bar, I'm going to add less than. Name of the element is button, BUTTON. And then we're going to type after the open tag, the label. What is the user going to see in the button? So let's say next page. And then less than slash button again, greater than. This is the closing tag. The only difference with the open is just the slash preceding the name of the element. So click run, you're going to see next page there. So this button you can click. Obviously, we don't have anything right now that's happening when we click, but what would happen in the ideally if you later learn JavaScript is maybe, or either it could be JavaScript or it could be just a link to another page. So if we want to be simple, we could change this button to a link. But if you want to just be fancy, you would click this button and then that would trigger what's called an event click, and then JavaScript code you could write to change the content to the next page. And then eventually it would compute the progress bar value to a new value. So every time you click next, this would fill up more and more. And then you could do the same, add a previous. Let's do before the progress bar. So less than button, greater than, and then previous page. Less than, slash button, greater than, and like that. So you click previous and next, previous and next. Okay. Now, what'd be interesting when you're reading maybe some document or scientific paper, it probably shows some data, and that data is in a table. So how would we show a table in HTML? Now, let me show you. There's the table element. So let's do it, describe the subsection here. Find the paragraph or describe the subsection. I want to show some data after that, so I'm going to break a line. Mind you, I could type everything in the same line as describes subsection, but it'd be very messy to be a long line, so I always break a line and have to have one element per line usually. So it's the table element, so write it within the angle brackets, and then put a closing tag there because we're writing something between. I'm gonna break a line there. Now the table is a bit more complex because, okay, what am I gonna write between the open and closing tag? So we're actually gonna write more elements. So we're gonna nest an element inside another element. Now the way tables work, there's usually a first row that's called a header or heading row, and it has table headers, right? So it's usually the column name. And then followed by rows, table rows, and with content in cells, right? So we have a table head, and each has a table header. And then followed by table rows, and each has a cell. Let's start off. So we have to write in angle brackets an element here. So there are different ways to go to the table. There's the more explicit way and implicit way. I'll write it the explicit way with more elements. So usually you put it here, the T. You get here the syntax. Maybe I'll do the simple way. Never mind. Let's do it the simple way. So to create a row here in the table, add tr, and then close it. And then the tr means table row. Okay, we're going to create a row. Let a row have cells. So the first row is special. You could use what's called th table head. So let's say column 1 here. And then close it with th. And then this is the first cell. And then you can do another one, th column 2. Like that. So what we're doing, okay, we have a table, and inside the table, create a table row element, tr. And then inside the table row element, we write a table head or header. You can see here it appears like this, column 1, column 2. Now, by default, it doesn't show any borders or stuff around the table, so it might be hard for you to see it's actually a table. So I would like to add some styling here with CSS, although you don't need to know CSS, to make it easier for us to see, visualize it. So I'm going to go with CSS and paste some code here. I just paste that code. So you can see now there's some border around it. So it's easier for us to see. In any case, here's the table with the table heads, which means like the name of the column. And then if you want to add more, you can proceed with more THs. Now, once you're done, make sure you're outside the TR, meaning after the closing TR. Now we can add another row. So I'm going to say less than TR, greater than, and then I'm going to add TD. Now, this is not TH, it's TD. This stands for the table cell, okay? Now let's add value 1 or something like that. And then I'm going to add another one, TD, value 2, close it. And then TR to finish off, close the TR, meaning close the row. Now you notice I always put spaces. Every time I open a new tag, I add more spaces that are on the left-hand side. That's called indentation. It's very common in programming languages. So every time I open tag, I will add 2 more spaces, at least 2 spaces. So you see, I'm always open a table, add 2 spaces all the time to the left. And then because I open a new element inside the table, I have to add 2 more spaces. So this gives me a sense of depth that visually, when I read the code, I see that, okay, this TH is inside TR and the TR is inside table. Whereas if I didn't have that, it'd be harder to understand who is inside what. When I say inside, it means the element is contained between the open and closing tag of another element. Okay, let me revert back. So that's why I always add indentation there. Anyway, click run in top left. You're going to see the column here. I added the second row with the TD for value 1, TD for value 2. Now I know it's a bit complex to write tables, It's not just some text between the open closing tag. You have to have a element side another element and another element side of element. But it's always like this. Make the row first, and then you make the cells or columns. In the first one is usually TH because of the heading, the column name. And then the second that follows is just TR of TDs. Now, if I want another one, just copy the second one, add there, maybe value 3, value 4, and it'll be like that, another row. Now, the reason the styling changed is because of the CSS that I added here. That's kind of alternating the color for the background of every row. That's easier for us to see because without the styling, we wouldn't see any border or anything. So it's hard to understand that's actually a table that we're seeing. Okay. Yeah, so if you want to add more columns, you just add to the TDs or TH. If you want to add row, add another TR. For example, another column. Let's add another TH to the first TR content. Let's say column 3, and then close the TH. And I'm going to see column 3 there. Now notice there's no columns, no cells under it. That's because you don't have a third TD in the rows that follow. So you make sure to add another TD here for the value third. And then for the next TR, make sure you know where you're writing the code. Identify the second, the TR, that's the third one. And then inside that, after all the TDs, add another TD. Type whatever there. And now they're here, value third and value here. Now maybe ask some people, how to merge, can I have one column merge with another, like Excel? Yes, you can. Let's say I want to merge column 1 and 2 here. So what I would do is, let's get rid of column 2. If I do that, you're going to see there's only column 1 and 3. But I want to make column 1 also take the space that belonged to column 2 there. So I can add an attribute to column 1, and that's called a call span attribute. Remember, to add an attribute, go to the open tag, right-hand side of its name, add a space, type the name of the attribute, this case call span, and equal sign, double quotes, type between the double quotes the size of this column. In this case, I wanted to occupy 1, 2, right? 2 spaces. Now, when we do that, you see the column expanded to take up the space that was used previously by column 2. So that way we push column 3 to its place. And that's how you merge the cells. Now, similarly, you can do the same with rows, merge rows with what's called a row span attribute. I'm not going to talk about it, but you can try it out for yourself. Just add the attribute row span to and see what happens there. All right. Now, let's see. So everything is nice. Just can talk about links briefly. You know, every page, usually when you look at a website, it will have things that you click that are links that goes elsewhere. If you want to create a link in HTML, you do so with an anchor tag. And the element name is A, just A. Now let's do that. Let's do after the table, maybe. Let's say I want to put a source to this table. The data from this table comes from a specific source. If you click here, you'll see it. So after the creation of the table, locate the closing tag for the table, make a line, and then we're gonna write a link. So less than A, that's just A like that. Then let's write click here to see the data source. And then close the tag with anchor /A. And you're gonna see there's click here to see the data source, but nothing happens when I click because I have to tell the anchor tag, the A, where it should go. Now that's done again with attributes. So I never need to provide further information to an element that you cannot do so just by writing between the open and closing tag. That's when we would add the attributes. So locate the open tag to the right hand side of its name, add a space, and add the attributes called href, equal sign, double quotes. Between the double quotes, you're going to type the destination. That's a URL. So you go whatever your website that provides the data. You can always copy from the browser address bar, like this one. Copy that, Control C, Command C, whatever, or right click copy, and you paste it here. Okay, obviously this one is directing it to itself. So it probably changed that somewhere else. The source of the data, right? I don't have anything right now, just put yahoo.com. Okay, now if I click run, you're gonna see now the link is there in the bottom left of my browser. It says where it's gonna go, https://yahoo.com. That's the URL where it's going to. URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. It's colloquially what we say links or location or wherever. It's what appears in the browser address bar. Now, if I click that, it's gonna get out of this page. I don't want that to happen. Okay. So if I hold control of my mouse in my keyboard and press that, it's gonna open a new tab. So I can see it's actually Yahoo. Okay, I'm closing that. So if you actually want to force the user to open that in a new tab or window, you can add another attribute to the A called the target. Now, to add another attribute, again, you can always add either before the existing one or after it. You can always have multiple attributes. That's fine. So if you want to add before, just make sure there's a space between the element name and the attribute, or between attributes, they have space for target here. So you can do be after as well, after href, make sure it's after the quotes with a space, target. Now equal sign, double quotes. And now let's write here the value for this attribute. That's going to be underscore blank. That's just the way it is. It just means like, think of it as opening a new blank page, in a new blank page, in a new tab or window. Traditionally, we had windows. Now we have tabs as well. So click run. If you click that without holding and controlling my keyboard, it's going to open in a new tab. Okay. So that's the anchor tag to make links. So you can link anything. You can wrap this anchor tag in image, something we haven't learned yet, but you can do it. Maybe wrap it in a button, maybe not a button, but usually wrap it in the text, right? All right, so I mentioned image, so let's just briefly look at that and can call it a day. So you're gonna see images everywhere on websites today, and that's using the IMG tag. So let's add a tag here right after the data source. So less than IMG, greater than. Now, what's special about IMG tag is there's no need for a closing tag. It's what's called self-closing. So you don't have to type the closing tag for IMG. You can just leave it hanging like that open. Because there's no text to show. So we don't have to put anything in between. Now you have to tell where's the image? Where's the image? Because otherwise I don't see anything. So we have to add another attribute to this called SRC, which stands for source. Now here's gonna go another URL, Uniform Resource Locator, luckily known as link. So you have to find an image on the internet, maybe your favorite search engine, like we do Bing.com, for example. Click images, search, find something like a dog. Click this first one and click view image, and that's gonna open the image in a new tag. So you can copy this URL from the address bar, Control C or Command C in Mac. Go back to the source value and paste it there. Click run, you're gonna see the image here is really huge, so I cannot see it in the screen. So I gotta scroll down and to the side. By the way, to scroll to the side, I hold shift in my keyboard and press the mouse or rolling wheel. That's how I do horizontal. So I take away the shift and go up and down. Okay, that's nice. Images, make sure to set a width and height, because it's really hard to see the original size. So I can set it with HTML attribute or CSS. Since we're learning HTML, let's add the width attribute here. I'll put 200, and the unit is typically pixels, px. But once you do HTML attribute value here, you don't need to say px. Now I can see the dog images there next to the link. Now the link itself, it's what's called an inline element, so it allows stuff to be next to it. That's why I see the image next to it and not pushed to a new line. Now you notice that I only set the width to 200 and the image also set accordingly. That's because if you only specify one dimension, it will take the other dimension and compute according to the original aspect ratio of the image. But if you really wanted to change the height, just add the height attribute there, follow a space between the attributes, the quotes, and put, let's say, 50. That's going to be really like kind of compress the image on vertically. So that doesn't look good. So I'm going to remove the height and let it compute it automatically. So it has the original aspect ratio. Just to conclude, one other attribute for image is alt attribute to describe the image. So I want to describe the image like, let's say, a dog of a specific breed. I don't know the breed, so you can type the breed name here. Be very specific about what the image is conveying, because this image is alt attribute is used to render text here in case the image is broken. For example, if I remove the source and click run, or I type the wrong source, the URL is wrong, or the image at the source is no longer there, I would see instead this text, a dog of a specific breed, in place of the image. And typically there's a broken image icon, or at least used to be in the old times. Okay, so that's what we're gonna see. In place of the image, you see the description. Now I'm gonna move back the image source there. And finally, another use case of the alt attribute for an image is for accessibility. There are people who have a hard time seeing, or they are blind. And what they do is they use what's called a screen reader, and it basically reads out loud a website content. So it will go through the whole web page, and when it reaches the image, it will read the alt attribute. So you would say, click here to see data source, a dog of specific breed, so that they would understand, oh, this part of the website was meant to be an image of a dog of a specific breed. So they would understand the content of the website without seeing it. Okay. Now, somebody asked the question, do you need to add values to span as you need? What do you mean? Was that about the table, or you're talking about the image? Talking about row span? Yeah, going back to the table, I'll say row span, basically add to the TD, for example. Let's see what happens if I add row span to here. See what happened there? Now this value one, that cell is occupying 2 rows when I add row span 2. So I push the others to the side because there's no room for value here. But if I removed the value 3, it would have space for the value 1 pushing down. Okay. Let me just comment this. By the way, we can remove or comment out elements with this notation of less than, exclamation dash dash, and everything after that will be ignored, meaning not rendered. And then you can close with dash dash greater than. So everything between these characters will be ignored or not shown. So I click run, you can see it's gone, the value 3, even though I wrote it here. So that's called a comment, very common programming languages, HTML comment, to ignore things between the less than, exclamation dash dash, and the dash dash greater than. Okay, so I think that's enough for our introduction to HTML today, and I will finish this lecture.